In your experience, why is it important that expressions of religious faith be present in the public life of Canada?
Canada is an amazing nation. It has developed into a diverse and inclusive, a beautiful land in many ways. It has great freedom and great opportunities. But these have not arisen from a vacuum. In many ways, they have been formed by people. And people are not an abstraction. They're not an idea. They're living creatures who relate to one another and have their own passions and their own values and their own way of looking at the world. People of faith, and this goes for all faiths, have contributed to our society with its freedoms and its opportunities and its diverse nature.
How has your faith shaped and inspired your professional and public life?
Well, I'm a Christian, and as a Christian, faith for me is not a private matter. It is much more public. I have found that while I might be primarily a preacher and a leader of a congregation, that very gift, that very calling has led me into a much broader engagement with society and the world. And so faith isn't something that I put in a box. It is part of my whole life. And I suppose part of this is that I grew out of a very rich tradition within the Black church in Bermuda, but also in the church in South Africa, where I lived for a number of years. Particularly there in the late 1970s, when the church stood against apartheid, I found myself realizing that what I believe actually affects how I address the needs of society as a whole. I couldn't separate my faith and my love for Jesus Christ with my desire for justice and equity and peace within society as a whole. So faith for me is everything. It is an engagement of the whole of life. As we go forward, I think it's important for our nation not to forget that faith has helped form so many of our values, but it will continue to do so. Maybe in new and in vibrant ways, but faith is not dead in Canada. Faith is alive in Canada, and the celebration of 150 years of it is only the beginning of what people of faith will do to contribute to a better Canadian society.
How can your experience of living your faith in the public square offer inspiration to young Canadians seeking to do the same?
Young people bring with them a vitality and an optimism and a hope for the future. And if anything is hopeful, it is faith. Faith always is based on the fact that God is going to do something good, better, great as we move into the future. But faith also has to be grounded in something. It has to be rooted in something. And I think one of the great things that I personally have to offer, but that the church and the synagogues and the mosques and places of worship have to offer young people in our country, is a grounding. So often, the world is changing so quickly, and the immensity and the enormity of that change is so dramatic that sometimes young people feel rootless or groundless. Faith is a lens through which they look at that world, interpret that world, understand that world, and ultimately contribute to that world. I think the exciting thing for young people as they're going forward is the contribution they can make to this ever-evolving and changing world. And if they're grounded in a community and grounded in faith, and if they look at the world through the lens of that faith, they themselves can make a profound difference in shaping the world to come.